I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who won the lottery. I was the kind of person who walked past scratch-off tickets without a second glance, who balanced every grocery bill to the cent, who clipped coupons not because it was fun, but because that's just how I was raised. Practical. Responsible. Boring, maybe. But that day, something strange happened. I was on my way home from picking up some milk at the gas station when the clerk, a guy I barely knew but saw often enough, grinned at me and said, "Hey, Dan, today's your lucky day. Buy a ticket, you might be the next millionaire." He laughed, like it was a joke, like he said it to every third customer. I laughed too. But I bought the damn ticket. I didn't even think about it after that. I shoved it in my jacket pocket and went about my night. Mason had spilled orange juice all over the couch, the dog wouldn't stop barking at something outside, and my wife, Julia, texted that she'd be working late again. I forgot about the ticket completely, until the next morning. I don't even know why I remembered. Maybe I saw something on the news. Maybe it was the universe nudging me. I pulled it out while sipping lukewarm coffee, sitting in my bathrobe, half asleep. The numbers looked familiar. Then again, they were random numbers. I hadn't chosen birthdays or anniversaries, nothing meaningful. Just quick picks. But there they were. One by one. Every single one. I didn't believe it. I checked the lottery site, then 2 more just to be sure. I thought maybe there was a glitch. Or that I was still dreaming. But when I scanned the barcode on the app and saw the confirmation, I dropped the phone. It felt like something cracked open inside me. My hands were shaking so bad I almost couldn't pick up Mason when he ran in, asking for waffles. I hugged him tighter than I ever had before. I kept thinking, everything is going to change. Everything. And at that moment, it all felt good. Bright. Like stepping into sunlight after years of gray. I had to tell Julia. I didn't want to call or text, this needed to be face to face. So I threw on some clothes, bundled Mason into the car, and drove to her office downtown. My chest was pounding the entire way there, but in a good way, like when you're about to give someone the best surprise of their life. I couldn't stop smiling. I kept glancing back at Mason in the rearview mirror, thinking how different his future was going to be. No more worrying about college tuition, no more stressing over every dollar. We could travel. Buy a house with a backyard big enough for him to run around in. Maybe even quit our jobs. When I got to Julia's office, I texted her to come outside. She was surprised to see me, and even more surprised to see Mason. "What's going on?" she asked, laughing a little, clearly caught off guard. I didn't say anything at first. I just held up the ticket. She stared at it, confused. "What is that?" I told her. I told her everything. And I watched her face change in slow motion. From confusion, to disbelief, to something I couldn't quite place, shock, yes, but also something else. Something harder to explain. Her smile didn't come right away. She didn't jump into my arms. Instead, she looked over my shoulder, then back at me, and said, almost too calmly, "Can we talk somewhere private?" That was the moment it all started to feel wrong. Something inside me started to coil, like a rubber band pulled too tight. But I nodded. Of course. I thought maybe she was just overwhelmed. Who wouldn't be? We left Mason with one of her coworkers in the lobby and walked to her car. She sat in the driver's seat and closed the door before I even got my seatbelt on. And then she said the words that made the world tilt under me. "There's something I need to tell you too." When Vanessa, asked to speak in private, I didn't expect it to be like that. I should have known something was wrong from the moment I stepped into her building. Vanessa had always been polished, composed, the kind of woman who made entrances. Her office was in a sleek high-rise downtown, all glass and chrome, the kind of place where everyone walked too fast and talked too loud on their Bluetooth earpieces. I'd never liked going there. She always said it wasn't really a place for family visits. But today, I didn't care. I had just won $120 million, and I wanted to share that moment with my wife. I wanted to see her eyes light up the way mine had that morning, to wrap her in that rare kind of joy that doesn't come more than once in a lifetime. But from the second I stepped inside, the air felt wrong. Her assistant, Melissa, I think, looked like she'd seen a ghost. She stood up so fast from behind the reception desk that her chair nearly tipped over. She stammered something I didn't catch and positioned herself in front of Vanessa's door like a bouncer. Mason, still holding his toy truck, clung to my leg, looking up at me with big, confused eyes. I told her I needed to see my wife. Right now. Melissa's eyes darted toward the door, then back at me, her lips tightening like she was trying to think of something to say that wouldn't make the situation worse. Behind that door, I heard laughter. Muffled at first. Then something else. A rhythm. Low sounds. Then the unmistakable gasp. That noise. That raw, gut-punching sound that hits you before your brain even processes what it is. I didn't ask. I didn't wait. I pushed past Melissa, my heart thudding in my ears, my hand suddenly clammy on the doorknob. And when I opened the door, time stopped. Vanessa was on the office couch. Her blouse was open. Her skirt hiked up. She wasn't alone. Bradley Monroe, the CEO of her company, the same smug bastard she always said was a bit much, but harmless, was with her. Shirt off. Red-faced. Married. Married with 2 kids, if I remembered correctly from the company Christmas party where he drunkenly bragged about them like trophies. They froze. All 3 of us locked eyes. Vanessa gasped, scrambling to cover herself, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to say something but couldn't form the words. Bradley had the audacity to sit up slowly, as if he could somehow smooth it over, like this was just a misunderstanding or a meeting that had gotten a little too casual. The room smelled of sweat and perfume and something else I couldn't name, something rancid that curdled in the back of my throat. And Mason. My son. My 4-year-old boy, standing in the doorway behind me, clutching my hand, trying to understand why his mom looked like that, why his dad had gone silent, why everything suddenly felt like ice. He didn't cry. He didn't say anything. He just looked. And that hurt more than anything else in that room. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a punch, though my fists were clenched so tight I thought I might crack bone. I didn't even curse. I just stared at Vanessa for a few more seconds, long enough for her to start to cry, to cover her face with shaking hands like that would erase what I saw. I looked at Bradley, who had the decency to at least look away. Then I turned, picked Mason up into my arms, and walked out. Melissa was still by her desk, frozen in place, her face pale. I didn't speak to her either. I didn't speak at all until I got back into the car and buckled Mason into his seat. My hands were steady, surprisingly. My thoughts were clear. There was a strange calm settling over me, like the eye of a storm. Everything had shattered, but instead of collapsing, I felt sharp. Focused. I didn't go home. I didn't call Vanessa. I didn't tell anyone. I drove until I couldn't anymore, until Mason fell asleep in the back seat and the sun started to drop behind the horizon. And the whole time, one thought kept spinning in my head, quieter than rage, colder than heartbreak: she betrayed me on the same day our lives could have changed forever. And maybe they still would, but not in the way she imagined. Something in me had shifted. Something deep. I didn't feel like Daniel Whitaker, the mild-mannered accountant anymore. That man had walked into an office to share the best news of his life and watched his whole world implode. The man who walked out was someone else. Someone who didn't cry. Someone who didn't forgive. Someone who planned. When I pulled into our driveway that night, the house looked the same as always, quiet, suburban, harmless. The porch light flickered like it always did, and the wind chimes Vanessa bought last fall tapped gently in the breeze. But nothing about it felt like home anymore. I carried Mason inside, tucked him into bed with the same blanket he'd had since he was a baby, and sat beside him for a long time, listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing. He didn't ask about his mom. Maybe he sensed something had cracked in the foundation of his little world. Maybe he didn't know how to ask. I didn't know how to answer, either. When I finally stood up, I walked into the living room, pulled out the lottery ticket from my wallet, and stared at it under the lamplight. $120 million. Enough to disappear. Enough to start over. Enough to burn everything down and rebuild from ash. But I wasn't going to run. Not yet. Vanessa didn't know about the ticket, and that gave me something I hadn't had in a long time, an advantage. I needed help, someone I could trust. That list was short, painfully short, but one name lingered in the back of my mind like an itch I hadn't scratched in years. Jason. My older brother. We hadn't spoken much in the past 5 years. A fallout over something stupid, some disagreement that had grown mossy with time and silence. But Jason had always been good at one thing: digging. He'd been a cop, then a private investigator. He knew how to follow shadows. He knew how to find what was meant to stay buried. I hesitated for almost 10 minutes before calling him. The line rang twice. "You alive?" he said when he picked up. Same dry voice. Same edge of sarcasm. "I need your help," I said. "And I can't explain it over the phone." He was at my door less than an hour later. No questions, no drama. Just walked in, took one look at me, and said, "Tell me everything." I told him everything. By midnight, we were sitting at the kitchen table with our laptops open, a pot of burnt coffee between us. I gave him Vanessa's phone. She'd left it in her purse at home, not even bothering to take it to work, probably using a burner now. I gave him access to our shared cloud accounts, her email, anything I could remember that she used. He worked fast, quiet, methodical. I watched as he peeled back layers of my life I hadn't known were there. It wasn't just an affair. It was a lifestyle. A double life. 9 months. That's how far back the emails and messages went. 9 months of carefully coordinated business trips that were nothing more than weekends at boutique hotels. 9 months of flight confirmations and Uber receipts hidden under work expenses. I saw the name Bradley appear so many times it stopped looking like a person and more like a stain. There were text messages, pulled from backups, full of jokes about me, about how I was too slow to notice, too busy being a dad. She called me convenient, useful, predictable. In one email to Bradley, she wrote, "He's sweet, but he's just background noise now. I don't think he's capable of seeing the bigger picture." That one hit hard. Not the betrayal of the body, I could wrap my head around that, even if it tore me apart, but the betrayal of who she believed I was. Like I was some soft placeholder, keeping the household warm while she played house with someone else. Like I didn't matter. Like I wasn't real. Jason didn't say much, but I could feel his mood shift. He'd always been protective, even when we weren't speaking. At one point, he looked up from the screen, eyes dark. "You sure you want to see the rest of this?" I nodded. He showed me the burner app. Hidden messages sent through an encrypted platform, disguised as calendar invites and meeting notes. A whole world built behind my back. There were even photos. Hotel room selfies. A shot of them at a beach in Charleston when she told me she was at a conference in Boston. Vanessa, wrapped in a towel, kissing Bradley's cheek, her eyes bright with a happiness I hadn't seen in years. I realized I'd mistaken her boredom for stress, her distance for exhaustion. I gave her space, support, trust. She used all of it as cover. My heartbreak burned out somewhere around 3 in the morning, replaced by something colder, cleaner. Not rage, rage is loud, stupid, clumsy. This was something different. A sense of purpose. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want revenge that came with police reports or ugly scenes. I wanted precision. I wanted her to feel the silence I felt when I opened that office door. I wanted her to sit in the stillness and realize that everything she thought was hers could vanish without warning. Jason looked at me like he saw it too, that shift in my eyes, the change in my posture. He nodded once, then closed his laptop. "All right," he said. "Then let's be smart about this." The morning after Jason and I uncovered the full scope of Vanessa's betrayal, I didn't sleep. I watched the sunrise from the kitchen window, Mason's cereal bowl untouched on the counter, the lottery ticket folded neatly and locked in the back of my wallet. I held it like a secret weapon, because that's what it was now. I knew that if I played this wrong, half of that money would be hers. North Carolina's marital property laws were clear: anything acquired during the marriage was subject to equal division. Unless the marriage was over first. Unless I was smart. Jason didn't waste time. By noon, he had called in a favor from an old contact, Laura Kim, one of the most aggressive divorce attorneys in the state. When I met her, she didn't flinch. She wasn't there to offer sympathy, she was there to win. And that's what I needed. She walked me through everything I didn't know about divorce law, asset protection, and timing. The plan was simple but delicate: delay claiming the lottery ticket until the divorce was finalized. Keep it hidden. Don't breathe a word of it, not even accidentally. And in the meantime, create a paper trail that showed the marriage was already dissolving. We started by freezing the joint accounts, quietly. Lara filed an initial separation agreement, citing irreconcilable differences, nothing dramatic. It was worded carefully, strategically, like we were just taking time to figure things out. I opened a new account in my name alone and began funneling my paycheck there. Jason helped me gather all the digital evidence: emails, texts, hotel receipts, screenshots, archived in multiple formats, encrypted and stored in places Vanessa would never find. We backed everything up 3 times. If she tried to deny the affair or twist the timeline, she wouldn't stand a chance. And through all of it, I played the role. I became the picture of a wounded husband trying to salvage his family. I told her I was still processing what happened. That I wanted to understand. I asked her to attend marriage counseling with me, not because I believed in it, but because it made me look reasonable. Empathetic. The more I played the part, the more she relaxed. I even suggested we separate our finances temporarily, Just while we're working through things, to rebuild trust, to give each other space. She agreed without hesitation, probably relieved I wasn't exploding or dragging her through court right away. She didn't know that every calm word, every patient pause, every sigh was rehearsed. She didn't know that Jason had a burner phone tracking her movements, or that every time she snuck out to meet Bradley, we logged it, timestamped and GPS verified. She didn't know that I already had her exit strategy printed and waiting in a safe. What stunned me most was how easily she lied, even now. She came home late twice a week, still claiming work dinners and conference calls, still sliding past me with a kiss on the cheek like nothing had changed. And I let her. I made coffee in the mornings, sat across from her at the dinner table, played with Mason while she scrolled through her phone, probably texting the same man I had caught her with. She thought she was in control. That I was weak. That I didn't have the spine to leave her. But what she didn't understand was that this wasn't about hurt anymore. It wasn't about love, or jealousy, or even anger. This was about precision. Control. Strategy. Every day I played my part, I bought myself more time. Every counseling session gave me legal leverage. Every, I forgive you, positioned me as the rational, stable one. I started documenting everything, every expense she made, every absence, every lie. With Jason's help, I built a narrative, a timeline, a solid case that would make any judge see what I already knew, that she had dismantled this marriage long before I ever stepped into her office that day. I kept the lottery ticket hidden inside a hollowed-out book on my shelf, tucked between pages I had never read, its edges starting to wear from the number of times I checked it. I never told Jason where it was, not even Lara. That ticket was my reset button. My insurance. But not yet. Timing mattered more than anything else. And through it all, I kept Mason close. I shielded him from the tension, the quiet calculations unfolding around him. I took him to the park, to school, tucked him in every night with stories about dragons and spaceships, pretending like nothing was different. Because for him, nothing should be, not yet. Vanessa thought she was dancing in the dark, moving undetected, untouched. She believed I was in denial. That I would either collapse or come crawling back for scraps. But I was neither broken nor desperate. I was building something, quietly, steadily. And she was walking straight into it. Every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m., Vanessa and I sat on a beige couch across from a soft-spoken therapist named Dr. Ashby, who wore wire-framed glasses and kept a notepad balanced delicately on her knee. The office was warm, dimly lit, with a salt lamp on the shelf and a little water feature that trickled quietly in the corner. A perfect setting for vulnerability, for tears, for reconciliation. Vanessa played her part well, better than I expected, honestly. She wept on cue, voice trembling as she spoke about regret and shame. She said she'd made a horrible mistake. That she didn't know why she did it. That she wanted our family back. She reached for my hand more than once. Apologized so many times it started to sound rehearsed. She even lied to Dr. Ashby's face. Said the affair had ended. Said she'd cut off contact. Swore she hadn't seen Bradley since I found out. Her voice cracked just enough to make it sound authentic. And I sat there, nodding slowly, watching her like an actor watches the understudy stumble through a role they never earned. I wanted to laugh, sometimes. Other times, I wanted to stand up and shout. But instead, I said all the right things. That I was still hurt. That I wanted to rebuild trust. That I needed time. I made sure I looked wounded, open, hopeful. It wasn't hard, I just thought about all the nights I lay awake next to a stranger who once swore she loved me. Vanessa had no idea I already knew the affair was still going. She and Bradley hadn't stopped, they just changed tactics. Different hotels now, small, out-of-the-way ones in the outer suburbs. They checked in under fake names. Used third-party booking apps. I even found out they switched to using prepaid phones, probably picked up at gas stations. But nothing stays hidden forever, not when your brother is a private investigator and your lawyer is assembling a case with military precision. Jason followed her twice a week, sitting in rented cars with tinted windows, snapping photos through long lenses, logging timestamps, license plates. Vanessa never saw him. Neither did Bradley. And then came the footage. One night, Jason showed up at my door with a flash drive. We sat down at my kitchen table again, same spot where this all started. I plugged it into my laptop and watched as grainy black and white video loaded on the screen, security camera footage from the parking lot of her office. There was Bradley, waiting in his car, engine running. Vanessa stepped out 20 minutes later, glancing around like a teenager sneaking out past curfew. She slid into the passenger seat, leaned over, and kissed him. Long, slow. Familiar. Then she laughed, brushing hair from her face like a woman in love. I didn't speak. I didn't blink. I just watched. That file went straight into the evidence binder Lara had been building, over 300 pages now. Bank records, phone data, surveillance logs, email threads, photos, screenshots, hotel bookings, witness statements. Everything documented, dated, catalogued. And every week that Vanessa cried in therapy about how sorry she was, we added more to the pile. She had no idea what we were building, no idea that every lie she told in that small, warm office was being matched with cold, indisputable proof. I never confronted her. That would have been too easy, too emotional, too satisfying in the wrong way. I didn't want satisfaction. I wanted silence. I wanted to walk into a courtroom with every weapon I needed and let her fall into the pit she dug for herself. I wanted her to realize, all too late, that she had been performing for someone who had stopped believing long ago. Dr. Ashby, kind as she was, didn't know she was just a piece in a larger game. She'd occasionally suggest communication exercises, trust-building activities, things like shared journaling or weekend retreats. Vanessa always agreed enthusiastically. Anything to fix this, she'd say. I'll do anything. But by the time we got home, she was already texting Bradley from a hidden number, already planning their next meeting, already lying with such ease it made me wonder how long she'd been practicing. I started recording our conversations at home. Not because I needed more evidence, Jason and Lara said we had enough to scorch the earth, but because I wanted to remind myself later, when this was over, that I hadn't imagined it. That this had happened. That the person I loved for nearly a decade had stood in front of me and performed grief while actively betraying me in real time. And still, I kept the lottery ticket hidden. There were moments when I thought about it, what it could do, how it could change everything in an instant. But I knew that claiming it too early would tie me to her. Half. Legally, morally, financially, half. And she didn't deserve a cent. Not after what I'd seen. Not after the emails where she joked about how easy it was to keep me busy with Mason while she slipped out the door. Not after she sat across from me, tears in her eyes, and said she wanted to rebuild, all while sneaking around town with a man who called me dead weight in a message Jason pulled from her encrypted cloud. So I smiled. I nodded. I played my part. And every time she said, "I'm really trying," I said, "I know." Because I did know. I knew exactly who she was. I knew exactly what she was doing. And I knew exactly when it would all come crashing down. The decision to serve Vanessa at work wasn't impulsive, it was surgical. I wanted precision, not chaos. I wanted the weight of her choices to drop on her shoulders in front of the exact people who had propped up her lies. The same office where she smiled through meetings, flirted in glass conference rooms, and pretended to be the powerful, respected VP with a perfect family waiting at home. She'd used that place like a stage, and I wanted the curtain to fall hard. I told Lara to proceed. Public service. Midday. No warning. It happened on a Tuesday. I knew her schedule, weekly strategy meeting at 11, the one Bradley always made a show of attending. Jason and I were sitting in a diner across the street, just out of view but close enough. I didn't need to see it, not really. But knowing it was happening, knowing everything was about to break open, was enough. Lara had hired a professional process server, a woman with sharp heels and a sharper presence. She walked in through the front doors like she belonged there, past security without blinking, and stepped straight into the meeting room where Vanessa sat at the head of the table beside Bradley. In front of the entire team, she said her name clearly, Vanessa Whitaker, and handed her the envelope. Calm. Clinical. Finished in seconds. Jason showed me the photo later, taken from the building's security feed through one of his contacts, Vanessa frozen in the act of reaching for the envelope, a dozen confused faces around her, and Bradley already beginning to pale beside her. His lips were parted, eyes wide. He looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. I didn't answer her first call. Or the second. By the fifth, I turned my phone off. She didn't come home that evening until nearly 10. Mason was already asleep. I was sitting at the kitchen table, lights low, laptop closed. I had expected yelling, but not the way she did it. She burst in like a storm that had been waiting to land, keys dropped loud on the counter, bag flung to the floor, her heels still on as she marched across the room. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she screamed. "You humiliated me. In front of everyone." I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "Read the footage." That stopped her cold. She blinked once, lips still parted, and I watched the confusion in her eyes melt into something else. Panic. She tried to recover, tried to pivot, but I could see it already, she knew. Somewhere, somehow, she realized the show was over. "You don't understand, this is a mistake," she started, but I stood up, walked to the drawer, and pulled out the binder. The one Lara had helped assemble. 300 pages. I dropped it on the table. The thud echoed. Every lie. Every hotel. Every text. Every time you said you were working late. Every moment you looked me in the eyes and told me you were trying, I said. It's all in there. She didn't move. Her hands stayed at her sides, fists clenched, breathing shallow. I flipped open the binder and turned to the parking lot footage, the still of her and Bradley kissing in his car just days after she swore the affair was over. "You lied to the therapist," I said. "You lied to me. You lied to yourself." Her voice cracked when she said, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." And for a second, I almost saw the version of her I used to love. The girl I met 10 years ago who laughed with her whole face, who used to fall asleep on the couch during movies, who cried when Mason was born because she didn't know it was possible to love someone that much. But that version was gone. This was someone else. She tried to spin it, of course. Said Bradley didn't mean anything. That it was a mistake, that she felt lost, that she wanted to fix things. I let her talk. Let her fill the room with half apologies and rewrites of history. Then I slid the papers across the table. "You can sign these now," I said, "or I can file them in court, and we go to war. Your call. But if we go public, everything in that binder gets entered into record. You'll lose your job. Your reputation. Custody of Mason. Everything." She stared at the papers like they were a foreign language. Her voice was small when she said, "You're not serious." I was. She sat down slowly, her anger replaced by something hollow. Her fingers hovered over the pen. For a moment, it looked like she might fight it, might try one last desperate appeal. But then she looked up at me, and something in her eyes shifted. She saw I wasn't bluffing. That I wasn't the man she used to manipulate, the one she called useful, behind my back. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. "Why now?" she asked. I didn't answer. I didn't know her that. She signed. The divorce went through faster than anyone expected. 90 days of silence, paperwork, and quiet meetings behind closed doors. Lara handled most of it, precise and relentless, leaving no room for negotiation. Vanessa tried, of course. There were emails, long ones, filled with emotional appeals and veiled threats. She showed up unannounced once, standing on the front porch with her makeup smeared and that brittle look in her eyes like she still believed there was something left to salvage. I didn't open the door. I didn't even move. She eventually left. In the final agreement, she walked away with her car, a few boxes of clothes, and supervised visitation with Mason every other weekend. That was non-negotiable. I would not allow her to tear through his life the way she tore through mine. Mason didn't know the full story. He was too young, but even he had started asking less about her, growing used to the rhythm of life without her in the house. I made sure his world stayed steady. Safe. I never spoke poorly about her in front of him. I didn't need to. The absence said enough. Her job unraveled even faster than her marriage. The internal investigation at her company, sparked quietly by the evidence Jason and I passed along, moved fast once it reached HR. Bradley was gone within weeks, fired quietly, but not without consequence. Vanessa wasn't far behind. Her involvement in the affair, especially the way it crossed professional boundaries, destroyed her credibility. The whispers turned into silence, the kind that comes when people no longer see you as part of the room. She left the company in disgrace and moved into a small apartment near the outskirts of town. 1 bedroom. No driveway. Nothing like the life she had before. And I waited. Day 91 arrived without fanfare. Just a cool morning, the hum of traffic outside my window, and the sound of Mason eating cereal at the table. Jason arrived just after sunrise. Lara followed shortly after, along with a financial advisor and a tax attorney we'd quietly brought on board weeks before. I pulled the ticket from the back of my drawer, where it had stayed untouched all this time, sealed in a laminated sleeve, resting inside an unmarked envelope. We drove downtown together, calm, quiet, efficient. The North Carolina Lottery Commission building was unremarkable, a squat brick structure with a dull sign and a linoleum lobby, but stepping through those doors felt like walking into another life. We claimed the winnings through a blind trust, set up in advance under a generic name. My name never touched the public record. No press. No headlines. No whirlwind. Just a signature, a handshake, and confirmation, $120 million, minus taxes, transferred discreetly into a new account with layers of legal shielding. It was done. We celebrated quietly, just a dinner at Jason's place, steaks on the grill, Mason running around the backyard with his cousin. No champagne, no speeches. I didn't need fireworks. I had peace. But Vanessa found out. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in weeks. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. Finally, I answered. Her voice was sharp, frantic. "You won the lottery?" I didn't say anything at first. I just waited. "You claimed it," she hissed. "After the divorce? Are you kidding me?" I kept my tone flat. Calm. "Yes. I claimed it after the divorce. It's mine now." "You bastard," she snapped. "You lied. You hid it from me." I let that hang in the air a moment, then said, "I won the ticket the same day I found you with Bradley. You remember that day, don't you?" She went quiet. I could almost hear her replaying it in her head. The timeline. The office. The door opening. "You hid money during a divorce," she said finally, grasping for something solid. "I can take you to court. I can sue." I didn't laugh. I didn't even smile. "You signed a no-contest clause," I said. "You agreed to the terms. You waived the right to future claims. It's over." She didn't respond. I waited, then added, "You betrayed me the same day fate gave me a second chance. And now you get nothing. That's not hiding. That's justice." She hung up. I stood in the quiet after, the phone still in my hand, the air still and full around me. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something settle inside me. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just finality. It was over. 6 months after everything collapsed, and then quietly settled, I packed up our things and left Raleigh behind. Mason and I moved into a lakeside house near Asheville, tucked just far enough into the trees that mornings felt like waking inside a painting. The air was cleaner there. Still. The kind of place where sound carried softly across the water, and silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was healing. The house wasn't a mansion. It didn't need to be. It was beautiful and modest and full of light, with a wraparound porch and enough space for Mason to run barefoot in the grass. I bought it in cash, through the trust. No debt. No strings. No ghosts. I left my accounting job without a backward glance. The number crunching, the client meetings, the long hours under fluorescent lights, it all belonged to a version of me that didn't exist anymore. I didn't want to disappear into luxury or waste time chasing pleasures I'd never cared for. I wanted purpose. So I started a nonprofit. Just an idea at first, born out of the chaos I'd survived. But it grew fast, faster than I expected. We called it Second Fathers. We offered legal support, counseling resources, and community for single fathers, especially the ones who found themselves drowning in betrayal, blindsided in family court, or trying to protect their kids through heartbreak. I wasn't a hero. I just knew what it felt like to stand in that storm with no umbrella. Mason adapted better than I could have hoped. He started therapy as soon as we settled in Asheville. He'd been quiet at first, carrying more than a child his age should, but slowly he opened up again. He laughed more. Slept through the night. Made friends at his new preschool and fell in love with fishing, even though we almost never caught anything. Every evening, we sat by the edge of the lake, his little legs swinging off the dock, and I'd listen to him talk about whatever filled his head, dragons, rockets, the shape of clouds. I didn't need anything else. Vanessa did eventually regain partial custody. Supervised visits turned into unsupervised weekends. She completed her therapy, went through a rehabilitation program for alcohol and codependency, and even found a job managing a small event space downtown. I didn't fight her on it. I didn't need to punish her. I wasn't angry anymore. We were civil, for Mason's sake and for our own peace. She never apologized in full, not the kind of apology that rewrites anything, but she acknowledged it. Quietly. And sometimes that's all you get. Bradley vanished from our lives entirely. Last I heard, he was managing some obscure firm in Iowa after his wife divorced him and his name lost any weight it once carried. I didn't care. I didn't watch, didn't follow. I never needed to get revenge on him. He had already lost everything, and the most painful part of losing everything is realizing you caused it. That was his to sit with. The lottery changed my life, yes. It gave me freedom, stability, choice. But the money wasn't the real win. What mattered more, what truly mattered, was that I got my dignity back. That I took what could have broken me and built something stronger from the wreckage. I protected my son. I protected myself. I didn't spiral, didn't strike out, didn't become bitter or small. I chose something else. I rebuilt. Every morning, I woke up before Mason and stood at the window with a cup of coffee, watching the mist roll over the lake. Sometimes the surface was glass. Sometimes it rippled with wind. But no matter what, it felt like mine. My life. My peace. My future. And after everything I'd lost, that was the real prize.